mentioned, for example, RPA and automation. And this is changing pretty much everything we do. It's changing the way we do business. It's changing the way that we interact with each other. It's changing the way that we even in our daily lives, this is quite disruptive. And the message that we are taking and the way that we are looking at things from Deloitte's perspective is that we see this disruption as a phenomenal opportunity. And to the extent that we've coined the term the age of with. Basically, what we're saying is we see the future as humans working with machine and by design. We are looking at things that the way that we are looking at this disruption as a method of augmenting our own capabilities, augmenting how we make decisions and how we take actions in our daily lives, in our work, using machines and leveraging the power of machines. So what is that? How does that translate to real life, right? So how does that translate to becoming an insight-driven organization or an IDEO? So for us, an insight-driven organization is an organization that's driven by intelligence, insights, information, in order for it to innovate and industrialize at scale. So each one of those has its own dimension, its own complexities, and its own introduction of capabilities. So first of all, when we look at an organization that's driven by, let's say, information, so we need to look at our organization and we need to become to have the right, reliable, secure, and robust data and platforms, so that we can trust what is happening, what the data tells us. We need to be an organization that is driven by insight, where we have strong analytical capabilities within the organization. So leveraging all sorts of techniques of data and analytics, whether it's descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, all of that all those jazzy words. An IDEO is an organization that is leveraging intelligent automation. So the intelligence, the cognitive capabilities that we are now able to harness based on the power of technology and artificial intelligence techniques. And obviously, the more we look into data, the more that we look into AI, we need to start creating a culture of innovation, a culture of ideation, and basically thinking outside of the box of what kind of value we can derive out of our data. And finally, we need an insight-driven organization and is an organization that industrializes all of these capabilities. So it's not an isolated function. AI, data analytics, should not be an IT agenda. It should not be even an audit agenda or a finance agenda. It should be an enterprise agenda. And the more we create that kind of cycle of trusting the data, creating insights, leveraging that intelligence, and innovating and creating that culture of innovation, the more we're able to industrialize, and the more we're able to expand the conversations and expand the horizons of the organization that truly leverages insights in its daily activities. But there are a lot of challenges, right? So it's not that straightforward, right? So culture is a big element of this, right? So we see a lot of organizations struggling to trust that insights can drive, and organizations which are typically driven by gut feeling, like I think we should invest in this area, right? This is changing the way, and we need to create a culture that adopts this. We need to communicate properly within the organization. We need to trust the data. We need to break the silos. We need to create the full buy-in. And to do all of this, there's so many things that need to happen. And therefore, an insight-driven organization is not only an organization that has good technology foundations, it's an organization that encompasses all of this and creates the capability for itself, that creates the culture and the methods around this, in order to truly become insight driven. So what is an IDO again? What does that mean? How does that translate into day-to-day activities? An insight-driven organization is an organization that starts by asking the right questions. It's basically creating a vision, creating ideas of value generation, organized for success. These are the first questions that need to be asked by the organization, saying, how can AI, data, and analytics, how can all of these concepts propel my organization forward? And once we've asked the right questions, we need to do the right analysis. When we talk about the right analysis, there are again multiple dimensions. The first thing you will see here on the slide, what we refer to as purple futures. Purple futures basically is a concept of integrating red people with blue people, the analytical people with the with the factual people. So bringing in the technical skills as well as the the visionaries, and bringing in an ecosystem of talent that balances business and technology and technical skills. We need to trust the insights so that we can do the right analysis. We need to trust the data. Therefore, we need ethics in the way we design our algorithms, and we need to understand the implications of design when we are considering artificial intelligence. And obviously, to do the right analysis, we need the right platforms. And we're going to see, for example, our colleagues, Naveen is going to talk about how we can use such analytical platforms like Power BI, etc., to do this analysis. But before we get to that, it's important to put all of these aspects, these components in place within the organization. And once we've done that, we've done the analysis, we've done, we've asked the questions, what can data give us? What insights can we generate? We've done the right analysis. We cannot stop here. We need to take the right actions. We need to create a culture of evolution within the organization, a culture that adopts these techniques and capabilities. We need to be user-centric. Everybody talks about, we always hear this, that we need to be customer-centric, or we need to be citizen-centric or employee-centric, and all of this. That's absolutely true, and this doesn't change. The AI revolution is no different. And if we only think about, if we start thinking about how AI can enhance our day-to-day activities, we need to know who is being impacted. So we do need to make sure that whenever we're making decisions based on this, we are user-centric. And by default, that means we have to re-engineer our processes. We have to rethink about how we do business on a daily basis, because now we have new powers and capabilities produced by artificial intelligence and analytics, in order for us to create that kind of momentum within the organization. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper in each one of these topics, asking the right questions, doing the right analysis, and taking the right actions. So, and what does that mean in an organization? First of all, when we say creating a vision, so a vision for the business, leveraging artificial intelligence, leveraging the capabilities that data and analytics can bring to the table. It's a forward-looking vision. It's about how we transform the business. It's not only about how do we, how do we chat with a chatbot. It's much bigger than this. It's about it's about creating that kind of forward-looking capabilities, and making sure that we are addressing all the hurdles that are going to come into the picture. There is there's definitely shortage of skills in the market. The world is becoming smaller. Global demand for talent is there across the board, right? How can we do this? How can we leverage this? How can policymakers and regulators, how can they fight the inconsistencies, and how do they manage all of those aspects in a highly volatile environment? And we see things like, for example, how our ecosystems and our markets, how do we quantify success with these kinds of with basically what the world flipped upside down, like the way it is. So there's a lot to consider, and there is a lot of concepts that we need to keep in mind when we are setting the vision of an organization that is driven by insights and information. So what is happening around the world, right? So what does that become? What does it do when you are becoming an insight-driven organization? We'll see different kind of models of organizations that are revolving around the basically leveraging of data. We see data-enabled differentiation. So basically, these are product innovators. Some organizations are saying, I'm going to monetize some of my data. I'm going to create new data assets and information assets within the organization. I'm going to enhance the way I deliver my business, I deliver my products and deliver my services to my customers and clients. We have organizations that are thinking about becoming data brokers, so becoming data providers. This is, again, this is a new way of generating value out of the data that you have and out of the information assets that you have. And we see a lot of value chain integrators. When we say value chain integrators, it's about organizations that are creating new, wider ecosystems based on the data and capability and the insights that they generate. And we see these kinds of different permutations of how organizations are leveraging advanced analytics, data, and AI in order to truly innovate and transform their business, creating new business models altogether. And then when we look at all of this, there's also a lot of competition within the individual organization. So how do we create that kind of basically vision, creating that kind of vision for success? And how do we measure that success? How do we prioritize demand? If in any organization today, in every conversation I'm having with my clients, everybody is saying, okay, what use cases do we want? The starting conversation is always, we need a use case catalog. But the reality is the biggest problems that my client face is how do they prioritize that catalog? It's not about creating ideas. It's about what idea do I start with? And how do I go from and assessing the value and the benefits, the return on investment that I get when I start looking at artificial intelligence, advanced analytics use cases. So in reality, this is where, the diagram that you see here on the screen, for example, is how do we create that kind of balance between value and the ability to execute these capabilities? And where do I want to function? Where do I want to play, basically? And how do I want to focus my organization's efforts in order to truly leverage the power of data? And then, of course, one of the things that I've also, continuously see, and one of the challenges that a lot of organizations face when it comes to this level of adoption is, how do I organize myself for success? How do I structure within my organization the ability to actually become truly an insight driven? How do I drive this thinking within the organization? A lot of my organizations think that I will hire a data scientist and therefore I will become AI enabled. And it takes so much more. And I think as we go on through today's presentation, you will see more and more dimensions to this. So it's not about having an individual, it's having a full operating model around data, insights, and artificial intelligence. And deciding, how do I organize, what kind of operating model do I have, whether it's a centralized function or a center of excellence function or a dispersed federated function, whatever model you choose has implications, because it has implications on the level of depth that you can produce, the level of the speed by which you deliver, the cost by which you deliver. Everything has a it's kind of restraints and resource constraints and also its return on that investment. And you need to be careful how you design your function and how do you set up that kind of capability. So defining that kind of services. So it's what do you need to do, right? So I think that's what I was referring to. It's not just about hiring a data scientist in your organization where you start adopting data and AI. There is so much that needs to happen. You need to, you'll need to generate insights. You need to generate visualizations and reporting. You need to create models and train those models, and you need to simulate the impact of those models. You need to engage with your business and engage with between the engagement between the technology side and the business side needs to happen, and there needs to be that continuous prioritization. People need to be trained on new ways of doing things. People need the change management aspect of making sure that when are we implementing the recommendations that the data is giving us? Are we adopting those insights or not? And making sure that we have that continuous improvement cycle within the organization. And and that's all before we get to the technology side, before we talk about the data platform that is required, about mastering the data and cleansing the data and creating clear definitions and create good profiles of data. All of that needs to happen to actually be able to achieve what we need to achieve, to trust the data, to trust the insights that the data is generating, and to be able to scale this out and industrialize, like we said in the beginning. So there are so many things that need to come into the picture and into the fray, and it's not only about having a data scientist in the team. And I think that's, if there is a message today, it's this, is that it's a wider organizational context that is required to truly generate value out of data. So how do we get that kind of organization, right? So there is so much in the ecosystem. So today it's much wider than just an individual organization. There is more to it, right? So understanding our ecosystem, how do we generate data? How do we generate information assets within the organization? How am I working with my suppliers? How am I working with my business partners? And how can I source more data? So data providers are available, and each piece of information that you can enhance and basically enrich the data that you currently have is also valuable, right? So how do you get that organization, and how do you get that kind of ecosystem thinking is also an important aspect of this. And it is, as you go through the evolution of becoming an insight driven organization, this becomes an even more critical and even more beneficial conversation. So when it comes to doing the right analysis, right? So we spoke about purple futures. We spoke about that we need to start looking at people in the organization that are neither red nor blue. They are neither business focused nor technical focused only. An organization that is truly driven by insights need the people that sit in the middle, the people who can combine the two, people who can who understand the intricacies of my business, but also who can understand and appreciate the complexity of delivering those insights, and how do we get all of these two together, how do we merge the two together in order to get the right value. And whether the people are coming from the blue and becoming trained on the red, or red and trained and experienced in the blue side, it doesn't matter. What matters is you need to have that thinking that purple people is where the future is. It's what's going to enable you as an organization to leverage data the right way. Now, trusting the insights, and that's also this is where the rubber hits the road. This is about making sure that you have the right insights, that I trust the data, I trust the analysis that is happening on that data, and I can understand the modeling that's happening. Can I understand what the data is telling me, and why is it telling me this? Is there the right level of explainability around it? Am I collecting the right information? Am I is my data accurate? Is it up to date? Is it current? Is it complete? Is it cleansed? Or is there undue influence onto the data? All of these factor in how you manage your insight process, and how you create a trusted and scalable and repeatable process to generate insights, so that you can trust those insights that you're generating. So this is an important element, and this is absolutely something that a lot of organizations miss, is that it's not only about doing it once, it's about making sure that this is a continuous cycle of trust and fundamental understanding of the data that you have. So how is that also organized? So one of the things that we're seeing globally, as well as in the Middle East, we're seeing the rise of the role of the chief data officer. And this is not necessarily only a technology function. This is not about this is not about keeping the lights on, or somebody who is maintaining databases. The role of the CDO is much wider. It's about it's a combination of a strategist, in terms of creating a shared vision of how data can be leveraged and how data can propel an organization forward, a catalyst for change, so that communication and that adoption happens, somebody who's able to operate these kinds of complex data platforms, and a steward for change, so steward for as an evangelist for the value of AI and analytics in the organization. And at the end of the day, and managing risk is an essential element. Managing ethics is an essential element. Understanding the cybersecurity and the vulnerability that may affect how my data is behaving, or what my data is telling me, and can I continue to trust it? All of these elements are absolutely necessary. And obviously, not the least is, am I compliant with my regulations? Can I continue to generate these insights? Can I make those decisions without impacting or without jeopardizing what my regulatory environment? So it is a complex role. It's a complex function, and there are so many checks and balances. And a chief data officer needs to keep all of this in mind as the CDO takes charge on generating value and turning an organization into an insight-driven organization. And trusting the insights, also, just like any other function, it's just like any other capability within the organization. No matter what we do, if we don't have the right governance in place and the right management in place, it is not going to be sustainable. So by having the right data governance, whether it's through the organizational governance, or through technical, basically controls over the data, controls over the algorithms, the insights that are generated, the reports that are produced, we need to have that kind of holistic trust factor in order for us to be able to continue to move forward. This is the trusted insight process. Basically, so this is just an articulation of the life cycle of what the techies will go through as they generate insights and as they produce artificial intelligence or advanced analytics capabilities. And as you can see, I'm not going to go through each one of those, but the idea here is what? It's that most importantly, it starts with the business. It's about the understanding, setting the business context, creating the benefits case, understanding who my personas are and what my user journeys are and what pain point am I trying to solve. And after that, you can go through the implementation. But that's a fundamental step. And this is why that kind of vision is absolutely necessary. When we said we need to ask the right questions and set up that vision, this is exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about creating a forward-looking view as to what are we trying to achieve out of data and artificial intelligence. What problem are we trying to solve for, and how do we envision this capability propelling our organization or advancing our organization or even transforming our organization. And once we have that view, once we have that understanding, we can start going through an implementation. We create data, we clean the data, we analyze it, we do features engineering and all of that stuff. We define, test, implement, all of that. And we obviously need to start, improve, continuously support, manage, enhance, all of that stuff. But it starts with the business, and it is absolutely it needs to be business focused in order for it to be sustainable within an organization. Talk about ethics, and I mentioned that briefly, but AI brings, and advanced analytics, they bring new challenges to the organization. It is about, because we are, let's say the concept of artificial intelligence to start with is a probabilistic assessment. Well, what AI is, it's about interrogating the data and bringing in a scenario and saying, based on historical information, what is the likelihood that something is going to happen, yes or no, and to what degree of confidence. The data that has been used to train the model, the algorithm, that is the fundamental, I don't want to say flaw, but if it's not done well, and if we're not careful about it, then that by itself is probably the single weakest link in the chain. Because if our data is biased, our future is going to be biased. If our data is flawed, our future is going to be flawed. So do we have the right understanding? Do we really trust the data that's come in? Did we train the models correctly? Did we embed any of our natural biases in it or not? Have we paid attention to this? There are plenty of situations, stories, and that how an AI algorithm started talking like a teenage girl because all the data that it was trained on was data from Twitter. There are so many scenarios, similar scenarios of bias in the training in the data sets that train the algorithms that have radically impacted the results that the algorithm produces. Similarly, if we don't trust that we are secure enough and protected enough, and at the same time, do we understand sufficiently the way that the model has constructed and generated these results? Why is the model saying, the AI algorithm telling us you should do this, not that? The explainability of the model, as it's referred to, is absolutely essential, because we are making decisions. We need to understand the foundations of those decisions, and we need to trust those foundations. This becomes a very important topic in any implementation, especially when we talk about, critical decisions and critical insights within the organization. It's very important that we have the right level of ethical design and the right level of trust in the models and the data that are sitting behind these models. I think I've mentioned, for example, the overcoming the bias when we're training. What are the opportunities? So a well-designed, I think these are, the sort of fundamentals? Is it consistent? Is it informed? Is it de-biased? And is it meaningful? And is it generating the right results for us? And these are the kind of design thinking that needs to go in whenever we are designing, these kind of, whenever we're relying on insight generation process. And finally, we're going to talk about technology. I think this is, after all of this, whenever it comes to analytics and AI, technology is absolutely foundational. This is, again, this is a little, I don't want to get into technicalities, but data platforms, reference architectures, taking data from structured sources, so databases, etc., semi-structured sources like Excel sheets and all, and then even unstructured sources. What is happening on, on social media and Twitter and the likes, and how do we ingest all of this data, bringing it into the, a proper platform, generating insights, creating dashboards, reports, advanced analytics techniques, all of that stuff. So technology platforms are absolutely important. And at the end of the day, you need to interact with data. You need to interact with these, these models, these, whether it's a descriptive algorithm or a predictive algorithm, you need to see it and you need to interact with it. And again, like we said earlier, we're going to see in the next part of today's session, we're going to see a great example of how products like Power BI, for example, can create that kind of advanced capabilities to interrogate the data and interact with the advanced algorithms that we're defining. But as you can see, I will also draw your attention to the bottom part of this diagram, where it's all about having the right controls, having the right security, having the right infrastructure to manage all of this, so that we can continue that same conversation, the same ethos of trusting the data and trusting the insights. All of this comes again into one picture, which is, what is the difference between advanced analytics and artificial intelligence? So is it something, is it massive? Is it a big leap that is happening? It's really not. It is the merger of two things. It's a merger of advanced interrogation of traditional analytical capabilities. What is important to take away from this, from today's session or from this conversation, is it is not about the technology. The technology can solve problems. It's about the thinking process behind it. It's about the leverage and the industrialization of the entire overall cycle, in order for us to generate the right insights for the organization. And then finally, taking the right action. So we've asked the right questions, we've done the right analysis, and now it's all about actions. I think the rate of change is absolutely is something that we need to look at, right? So the more we advance and the more we're able to leverage these kinds of advanced technologies and these techniques, the higher the faster it is for us to change. But also, more importantly, the way that technology is proceeding and the way that technology is moving is allowing us to create even faster change than normal. So how do we create that change within an organization? And what is the mindset that needs to change? So we've listed here some examples. So we need to move away from thinking that AI is going to take over people's jobs, right? So the idea is that, and we need to start thinking about this a little bit more, strategically. We need jobs to be, in a way, redesigned. We need to leverage machines. We need to work with machines and be augmented by the technology, rather than feel threatened that the technology is replacing. AI is not an IT project. It's about an integration of all of these things that we've seen. It's about people, process, it's about functional capabilities, and it's about business value. Skills are changing, and everybody today is getting a lot closer to the technology. Everybody's closer. We all use Siri or Google Assistants, this is becoming mainstream. Why shouldn't we start thinking about making it mainstream in our work as well? So it is important to start thinking about these kind of these kind of paradigm shifts in the way we think about the change that's happening, and how we think as collectively as an organization into to start embedding the change and creating that kind of leveraging the disruption that is happening for us to propel into the future. I think that's also important to understand that where are the changes, where is the biggest impact that's happening, because it is happening all around us. And in a way, you will see that the more we get to the physical abilities, that's where you see the least amount of change. But the idea is that our technical skills are the technology is not significantly different than the technology that was there before. Complex problem solving is becoming where we need to start putting our minds. This is where the skills that are required. It is all around us. It is pervasive across the organization. And we need to start thinking about all of these matters. How is the change going to impact all of us in order for us to leverage this and harness that change the right way? And we talk about change because that's ultimately, this is how we create that kind of industrialized value. And we need to think about what are those, basically looking at the various dimensions, right? So when we're creating the change, we need to think about how do we make AI immersive within the organization? How do we create that kind of culture and that awareness within the organization? So we need to create that immersion. We need to educate ourselves, and we need to educate our colleagues and our partners, our suppliers, our employees. We need to start thinking about strategizing around it. We need to start thinking about how do we look forward to the change, and what will our future look like. We need to collaborate across the value chain. So again, it's the change is impacting not only us, but it is impacting our customers. It's impacting our suppliers. It's impacting our employees. And how do we advocate for it? How do we advocate for the business value in order for us to create that kind of overall organizational adoption and the embedding those capabilities within the organization? And when we do all of this, we need to also look and reflect back. Do we have the right process? Do we have the right cycle to leverage all of this? It's not enough to say, here's an algorithm that can do prediction X. Can I embed it into my business process? How do I use it? How do I interact with the insights? How do I leverage those insights for my daily activities? We need to create that kind of view about understanding our business cycle, and how do we create that kind of overall view that there is truly a return on investment from whatever we're in, from these initiatives, and how do we maximize that return? So we need to think about the impact, the commercial impact and the financial impact of analytics and advanced analytics and insights for the organization. And finally, we put all of this together. What you see here on the slide is what we call as our insight-driven organization framework. It's putting all of this together. This is as a multi-pillared or a multi-dimensional view to an organization that is truly insight-driven. it starts with setting a clear strategy. It's creating a vision, understanding value drivers, business cases, making sure that we manage our stakeholders and we have that continuous communication. We have the right operating model and we innovate the right way. Then we look at our people and operating basically our, do we have the right talent and can we create that change journey, and can we instill knowledge within the organization? Do we have the right processes, managing demand, managing a re-engineering cycle? Can we establish the right governance? And how do we make sure that we realize benefits? And after that, we start looking at technical aspects. We start looking at logic. We start, whether it's going to be robotics, whether it's going to be cognitive, whether it's going to be data extraction and ingestion, all of that. And then once we do that, we look at the data. How do we monetize it? How do we ensure the ethical boundaries? How do we make sure that we are also compliant with regulations? Do we have the right quality of data? All of that stuff, which is fundamentally then looking at the technology architecture that all of this is sitting on. So whether it's the solutioning, whether it's having sandboxes for people to experiment and to test data, and do we have the right, basically, and having the compute capability, whether it's cloud or on-premise, all of these factors come into the picture. So what you see, the IDEO framework is basically a framework to look at all of these factors together, what makes an organization become truly insight driven. And, so that's our view. And, I hope that, I kept it a light touch for everybody. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Yusuf. Again, it was very, very detailed, and it was helpful to understand the overall strategy where we are heading to. We have a couple of questions. In interest of time, we may not be able to take additional, but I'll just take two. So one is there any minimum volume and scale of a transaction, such as customers and products, which requires like before we implement BI, keeping in mind about the investment perspective? And is there any benchmark for the financial service sector?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. So when obviously artificial intelligence and the foundations of artificial intelligence, especially in the regular nomenclature, is about data. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of records, millions of records, etc., to train the models. However, that's very important, is that we don't always have that. The biggest example is COVID. We don't have too many historical records of an event like COVID that has impacted the world so significantly. So how do we deal with it? Nobody is sitting there stuck, right? So there are ways to do it. So there are different techniques and different modeling capabilities that are available to sort of create a simulated environment of what something like COVID how something like COVID can impact an organization as a top line, for instance. Right. So it's not that because we don't have data that we cannot do anything. Obviously, the availability of data improves things, but we can still look at things like, for instance, simulation techniques, which are basically not really dependent on large volumes of data. We can look at proxy data, so information that is available in other industry or in another environment that can be related and approximated to simulate our own environment until we're able to generate sufficient data. And there is also data simulation, data generation processes that can apply their own artificial intelligence techniques to simulate the availability of data given business rules and everything. So I maybe a longish answer, but there is no real hard line saying if you don't have 1 million transactions, then you cannot do this. The reality, you can do all sorts of intelligence. You can generate all sorts of intelligence based on different techniques and based on your scenario, regardless of the volumes of data that you have. I hope that
Okay, thank
answered the
you.
questions.
Yeah, thanks. So the last question is, so assuming AI has executive or CEO ownership, which is the ideal team or division where AI organization should be in? Is it CFO function?
Okay. So where does AI and advanced analytics sit? That's
Yeah.
oh God, that's a very big question, and a lot of organizations struggle with finding the answer. So there are organizations that look at this as a technology function, so it could sit under the CIO, for instance. Some organizations look at it as a business excellence function, so it is in a way independent from all of this. Some organizations look at it as a risk function. The reason why you have so many scenarios and so many, there is no one clear answer, is because it's about what is it that we're trying to do. If I take a .com organization, like a digital native organization, let's take, for example, Kareem or Uber or something like this. I don't work with them personally, but AI and advanced analytics are core to their business. These are not supplementary capabilities. These are the product that they sell. I don't think they will treat AI and analytics the same way that a retailer would, nor like what a government entity would. So I think it is situational. It is really about what is it that you're trying to do. But and I've seen all sorts of permutations. As a CDO, the chief data officer role, for example, is completely independent. They are reporting into the executive. It is a board level agenda in a lot of organizations as well.
Okay, thanks a lot. And I think we have a couple of more questions, but in interest of time, I think we'll move to the next session. Yusuf, again, on behalf of our committee and members, thank you for taking time today. And the session was really useful. And I hope we'll be having such seminars, and in future, we'll get opportunity to invite you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So with this, I'll hand over to Naveen Ajmera. He's an excellent trainer and consultant in Power BI. And without taking further time, over to you, Naveen.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me say good evening to everyone. And thank you so much for inviting in my own community, which is the Chartered Accountant, though I'm part of Indian Chartered Accountant community. What a nice presentation Yusuf had, and a lot of questions or a lot of points what he made is going to be covered in my session with more of demos what we are going to see about Power BI. So let me share my screen first. You're able to see the screen, right? I'm starting, first of all, I'm a chartered accountant, just like all of you in the audience there. And 10 years back, my Excel skill was below average. Let me say that upfront. The best part in Excel was pivot table and the VLOOKUP function. More than that, like index match or offset, or many of you might be using more advanced function, which I never used. So that was my level Excel skills, what I had. But I was fortunate enough during that time that I got introduced to a tool called Power Pivot within Power BI, or within Excel. In 2010, Microsoft introduced it. And till today, even in the audience today, many of you might not have heard about Power Pivot, which is very strange. And that's where my journey started. I'll just give you a view of what Power Pivot is all about while I do the demo. Then 2013, Microsoft introduced another tool within Power BI, within Excel, sorry, which was Power Query. And Power Query is a data transformation tool. And then came 2015 when these two tools got integrated into Power BI. So what we are going to see today, the complete demo on Power BI, but the same capability is still available within Excel. So many of you who might not have, your organization, if they don't allow to use Power BI for whatever reason, is still whatever you are going to see is those learning, or if you upskill yourself in these tools, you can still apply the same learning in Excel or vice versa in Power BI. So 2015 Power BI came, and then from there onwards, wherever in my last employment, I started building those reports which were in Excel using Power Pivot and Power Query, then moved to Power BI. And by the time I left, almost every report in organization was on Power BI and completely automated. Uh, that was the power of Power BI, and then I realized that it is this what I did for my organization, I can do for others as well. So I started doing training and then project for large organization here in UAE. And last 3 years, I'm completely into Power BI, so a lot of training. Then I had the Microsoft Power BI user group, which is more of a community group session like this, what we are having today. We do a lot of knowledge sharing session under that platform. So let me quickly start with, and whatever demo you are seeing today or the presentation, it is all on Power BI. You can see that there is no PowerPoint or there is no Excel. So I hardly use any more PowerPoint or Excel. Everything what you are seeing is in Power BI. So the first slides, which is kind of an introduction, let me go back to the first slide. The need to shift from Excel to Power BI. We all are heavy Excel user. I believe out of 100 plus audience here, almost everyone is without Excel. You don't imagine your life or the day. I normally do a survey in other sessions where I ask a simple question: how many hours you spend in a day on Excel? And I'll find, more than 60% people would say 4 to 6 hours, so almost 75, 80% time of your day you spend in Excel. But why you need to shift from Excel to Power BI? And this is the whole theme of today's session. With each of the slide, I'll be having some, Excel issues and how Power BI overcome with that, and how it is going to help you if you start learning Power BI, or even for that matter within Excel, the Power Pivot and Power Query, which I mentioned. So, I just don't want to give any sort of a gimmick or here. So that's why I'm saying here my story is true. And at the end of the session, you will say that this is too good to be true. Some of the features which is there in Power BI. And Yusuf mentioned a lot of, he talked a lot about AI and other things, machine learning and all that. We being finance, leaders, or we being from finance domain, we normally don't understand many of the technicality of all those. But with Power BI, it is a Microsoft tool, so you will see a lot of AI is being built into Power BI, and we'll make use of that. So I jump to the second slide. Says export to Excel. Very strange, all the organization wherever I go to, or even for that matter, any technology today you adopt or you try to adopt. First thing you ask your vendor that do you have export to Excel button in it? Very funny, you are investing billions of dollars in a new technology and still you want that export to Excel button. And I believe on almost every tool, the export to Excel button is widely used or most frequently used button. Because Excel being there for last 25, 30 years, traditionally being, go to reporting tool, and we all are familiar with the Excel features. Now, Microsoft Excel is also Microsoft tool. Power BI is also Microsoft tool. So, what is the why Power BI? I'm not promoting here Power BI, as Yusuf said. Technology doesn't matter. What you feel comfortable with, you adopt that. What you can upskill in that, you will adopt that. And what is easy for business users, it is no more IT domain as far as the data analytics is concerned. So that's where the Power BI come into picture, because it is similar to Excel. That's what my next. But before I jump to the next slide, being Microsoft, a lot of AI, machine learning, whatever they are building on technology front, they are trying to bring everything in Excel and in Power BI, and we'll see some of those examples today. So that make this tool much more powerful than any other tool that might be available in the market. Now, Power BI, why Power BI? So another reason for that, it is familiar, like person like me who was having an average Excel skill, and today I do large size project for enterprises on Power BI, giving them data analytics and AI features within Power BI. So this is a, kind of any of you in audience who is listening to me, you are familiar with Excel. It is easy to get started with Power BI, and that what we will see. Though at the advanced level, yes, you need to have patience, learning, and you need to keep practicing on those things to reach to that advanced level. But even with a basic knowledge about Power BI, you will be much more better position than what you are doing on Excel today. Now, Power BI will ingest data from virtually any source. So in Yusuf's presentation, he talked about, you have data silos everywhere, your social media, your CRM, your HR system, your ERP system, and then you have unstructured sources or Excel data, CSV data. Now, most of the tools, what is there in the market is the problem is you cannot integrate all the data within one tool. Whereas Power BI allows you to connect to different systems and then make a enterprise level 360-degree views report within the single tool. So from here, I start giving you a live demo that with each slide, the point I'm making, I'm going to show you on Power BI that how you use or how I support what I'm saying on the screens here. So let me quickly jump to my Power BI desktop. Power BI desktop is a free tool. It is complete free tool. You can download it today. So I'm opening now a Power BI desktop. So if you Google for Power BI desktop download, you will find a link, which is a Microsoft website, and it just requires your email ID to download that tool. And when I say free tool, means it's complete free tool. And this is the development tool. And I'll come on to the license part and other things at the later stage of the demo. So once you open this Power BI desktop, the front screen look like this. A lot of learning resources, links are there. You see, and Microsoft is good in documentation and providing, because the community is so big. So, everyone contribute to that community. So you go and Google today and you will find a lot of material as far as learning is concerned on Power BI. So I just close this and I just give you a view of Power BI first time when you're opening it. You are going to see this screen, which is showing you the data sources on the watermark here, that import data from Excel, SQL Server, or your paste data from a blank table, try a sample data set, or get data from any other source. So let me click that. By the way, you can...
Naveen, sorry, I think people cannot see your current screen. Can you reshare? Okay.
Let me reshare it. Yeah, it's visible now.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I opened the Power BI desktop. As I was saying, it is a free to download tool. This is the first screen you see where on the bookmark, you see on the watermark, you see that data sources are mentioned, and there is a link get data from another sources on the ribbon menu. And this is familiar, what you have on all other Office tools, the similar kind of menu or ribbon, you will find it there, much user friendly in terms of understanding these. So either you can get data from another source here or get data button over here. And you see a list number of connectors available. Most widely used are Excel, CSV. So it will just come up. So about 200 plus sources, data sources, from Excel to CSV to XML, JSON, or folder, even PDF. Your SQL Server databases, most of the ERPs are on SQL Server databases, IBM, Oracle, SAP, name it, whatever you might be using in your organization, all the Microsoft stack of databases, then your AWS, Salesforce, Google Analytics, LinkedIn, all social media platform, or even for that matter, any other app, all are available here. So wherever you capture data, you can make use of those data connecting in Power BI and then making a kind of 360-degree views for your organization. That's the best part of Power BI, that you need not to have two different report and then you cannot show them together. So let me quickly jump to a demo. What I'm going to do, I have an Excel file which I'm going to use for today's session. So once I start connecting that data will be coming into Power BI. And just to give you a quick review of the data, that this particular data sheet or Excel sheet got 4 sheets in it. And one is called date, other one is geography, the third one is product, and the fourth one is sales. Now, most of us who come from Excel background, we never heard the term called data modeling, right? Data modeling is a term for each of the software, multidimensional data model are there behind the scene, where the dimension table, which is basically these table like geography, product, or if I talk about from finance module perspective, you have chart of account, then you have your customer, you have your reason, you have your different companies. So all those are dimension, whereas your GL transaction table is called fact table. So in this model, I have, keeping it simple, I use it for my training sessions. So here you have the date. I can have a review of the date table. It is just going to show me that what are the columns here and some sample preview here. If I look at geography table, it is going to give me the zip code and each of the stores. So the data relate to a retail store of chain, which is having different store in different location. Then you have the product. So the product IDs are there and the product attributes for each of the product ID is there. So these are in common terms, we use master table. So these all are master table. And then you have the transaction table, which is called sales table. So this contains only the IDs for product, IDs for zip, and the date, and then 2 columns for the transaction, which is unit and revenue. So this is a simple data. And I'm going to now jump to my presentation first. Now, Power BI has a data transformation tool. I mentioned about Power Query in Excel and Power Query in Power BI. Any Excel user can learn. So after this screen, when I jump to that screen of Power Query, you will get to see that what Power Query can do. Now, what Power Query is all about is, it is a data transformation tool. Just to give you an example, in our day-to-day routine work on Excel file, we get data dumped from different systems, and then we do a lot of cleansing there, removing duplicate, removing blank, data type is an issue, spelling it is misspelled, you change it every time. Then you do a lot of VLOOKUP, you join different files to bring in one single flat file to create your pivot table and pivot chart. This is a normal life of an Excel user in every organization from large to small. What Power Query does is your routine task of doing all these transformation on repetitive basis. You will be doing a weekly report or monthly report or daily report, and every time you dump those data, and every time you have to do those cleansing tasks again and again and again, until unless you know some VBAs macros, which is not everyone's cup of tea. But still that does require a coding and all that. But here what we will see in Power Query, it is very simple tool to learn. All are menu driven, button driven, and with advanced use, you can make good use of this particular tool. So let me jump to, so from here I go to transform data. As I said, Power Query is the tool which allows you to clean data, transform data. So I'm saying transform data. And it is going to open a new window, which is within Power BI, which is called Power Query Editor. You will notice on the top, it is called Power Query Editor. All my 4 sheets, what I had in Excel, it comes as a query over here. And for the sake of time, there are a lot of things within this, but for the sake of time, I'll quickly do few transformation here. So I just jump to the home button, and you see all these are similar, very similar to our Excel kind of ribbon. And if you see user friendly, you can remove some column, you can keep some duplicate, you can remove the duplicate rows or keep rows, very user friendly. So here I'm going to do a quick transformation in one of the table. So here I have a city column in my geography table, but that is a concatenate value of city, state, and the country. And I want to split it. So you all do that split data in Excel. Here by right clicking, I'm saying split the column by delimiter. Delimiter is a comma. So it will give me 3 columns. Each occurrence of the delimiter is a comma, it is identifying in itself and giving me 2 more columns here. With city, I can rename that city column. And then I have the city 2, city 3, which I don't require. Actually, I already have the state and those column. So I remove those column. And if I need to do, more transformation, as I said, you do a lot of transformation in Excel, which is like, I didn't write any single formula. I'm just using the right click and the buttons, a lot of buttons available there, which allows you to make those changes. Another transformation here, let's say in the sales table, on the date column, I want a separate year column. So I simply go here and I just make add column here. And I go to the date transformation and I say create a year column over here. So it will allow me to create an year column. Yeah. And with magic, you just got a year column. Normally, you would do this in Excel by writing some formulas over there. And once my transformation is done, then the next thing I jump to my next slide, which is about the modeling, right? So data model, as I said, it is a new term for most of the Excel user. You all uses Excel, but in Excel, the limitation what you have is it requires a flat table where all the data, what you would require for your reporting has to be in single table. So the flat table or denormalized table, we call it in IT world. There are a lot of issues with that. If your data size is large, a lot of text value within the data, a lot of formula driven, a lot of VLOOKUP attached to it, or most of users experience this, that you are in the lunchtime, you're going for a lunch break and you're done something on Excel and it says not responding. You come back after lunch, still it is not responding. So sometimes you have to just give it up or do something else, or you spend a lot of time. Whereas in Power BI, the technology behind it is being developed for the large size of data, and the modeling engine behind that can handle, I would say a tetrabyte kind of a data. So the large project which I do, one of the project which I have done, 17 million rows in the transaction table, and still it runs, just like without any issue within the reports. So this is the best part in Power BI. And I mentioned about Power Pivot, which is in Excel, the similar Power Data Model technique in Excel. Still, that would have some limitation compared to Power BI, but still, if you are having a smaller set of a data, 1,000,000, 2,000,000 rows, you still can use in Excel. So let me now give you a glimpse of what Power BI data model is. So my data is ready now here after the cleansing and transformation. From here, I just say close and apply and load the data into data model. So when I say close and apply, you will see my data is going to come here in the report part or report page where I have started data connection, and it is loading into the data model. So these are the 4 queries or the 4 sheets which I had in Excel, which is now coming into the model here. Usually, if you are doing this report in Excel, what you would do is in your sales transaction table, you would do a lot of VLOOKUP. You will bring the product attributes within the sales table. You will bring the city name, geography element into the sales table. You will bring year, quarter, or month into the sales table itself. And then you would do the pivot table and pivot charts, right? But here what happens, no need to do a VLOOKUP in data model. So now let me show you first the data view. So the second icon over here, it is just going to show you the data here. So this is my date table, this is my geography table, and this is my product and sales table. So all the data are there, and you see there is 117,917 rows. And this is the model view where I create the connection between these tables. Automatically, the Power BI recognize that in product table, you have something called product ID. It linked to that product ID in my sales table. You see that relationship is being created. Same way it do for the zip code, a unique code in the geography table, and it connect to the sales table, zip column in the sales table. Date column, it doesn't do automatically for some obvious reason that in sales table, you might have multiple date column. So I do drag and drop and I make the connection over here. So this is a simple relationship I created. I'm not going into technicality of this. It is a very simple model from learning point of view. But when in the large set of data, large number of fact table would be multiple number of dimensions. So you might have 20, 30, 40 table in your model in real life. So that require a more technical skill, or rather more knowledge about the modeling and the relationship and all that. But I'm keeping it simple. So this is my model. Now it is ready. I go to the report page. Before I go to the report page, let me jump to the, so this is what data modeling I just mentioned on this screen. And the next screen says that access and store a vast amount of data with no issue. As I mentioned, in Excel, you would always have an issue 100, 200,000 rows and multiple VLOOKUP formula or some other formulas, it always breaks. Whereas here, you can have, as big size of 300 megabytes CSV, connect those within Power BI. It basically, the Power BI modeling engine compresses the data to almost about 6-7x kind of compression it is having there. So 300 MB size would become just 50 MB data. And then whatever the technology is being used called Vertipack engine, which is very performant in terms of the queries, what you write using the language formula language within Power BI. So this is the best part of Power BI. Even if you don't go for license and all that, the desktop tool, what I'm just working currently on, you download it, and rather than keeping your data in Excel, you can keep it on Power BI, a desktop as well. The next slide is about Power BI as a quick insight. So in previous session, a lot of talk about AI and machine learning and all that. So now I'm going to show you some features of AI which is being built into Power BI. So let's just jump back to our model and the report page. So this is report page. And here what I can do is the data had 18 months data. The sales data for this particular model is having roughly about 18 months data in it. So I quickly drag and drop. So mostly it is drag and drop. You see the visualization here. I'm going to use a slicer first, where I'm going to build a slicer for the months. So I pick the month from here. I just put that in the field, and you start seeing that it is going to create a slider here, which I can play with, and I can accordingly create my report based on the slicer. So most of you might be using the slicer or the filter in your pivot table in Excel. So similar kind of thing. And now I start building some of the report without writing any formula or anything. Let's say revenue number, I just drag and drop here, and it is just going to create a simple chart over there. From the product table, I just pick the category, put on axis, and it is just going to give me axis category wise revenue number. Based on the period selection I have, I can play with that and the number will change accordingly. A lot of formatting and other thing which I'm not covering. I have a ready report which I'll show you, but just to give you a glimpse of that, how you can just simply drag and drop. And if you put that state and start creating a map visual, automatically it will pick a map visual where I can put the revenue number into it, which is going to determine the size. So the data belong to 3 states, California, Texas, and New York. So likewise, you can quickly create, some good looking report. And what insight feature I was talking about, let me create something here, a column chart. So I pick a column chart here. And in that, I'll pick on axis year and on values, the revenue number. And what I'm going to do, because the data is 2015 and 16, and as I said, it is 18 months data. So I have to have a filter for the months here. So rather than having this date filter, I'll put another filter over there, which is going to give me a selection for the months. So I have these months, which is coming in alphabetical order. I can just go and set it up For the month column, I just need to have a sorting order corrected, sort by a month number column. So automatically it sort in the Jan Feb order. So now you see here it is going to change Jan Feb. I'm going to change this as a slider or a slicer, and making some cosmetic changes here just to make it nice looking slicer here. So let me use this as a, so now as I was saying, the data is for 18 months. So I have to select a comparative number to make a comparative report. I select these 6 months. And now you see the numbers coming here. It is 2015 is 25 million of the revenue, and 2016 is 22.22 million revenue, right? Now, obvious question, when you put these kind of charts, your stakeholder will ask where from this drop is coming. You have a drop. I haven't created any formula. I'm not showing what percentage of decrease or increase is there. Now I'm going to use a Power BI Insight feature, which is going to give me AI feature, which is called Insight, which is going to give me that where from this fall is coming, what is the variances in terms of percentage and all that, and it will build a model behind the scene and will give us a good insight about the data. So let me click on 2016, and there is a function called analyze. We say they explain the decrease. It automatically recognizing that there is a decrease compared to the previous year. And when I click on that, a magic happens, and you see a 11.58% decrease in revenue between 15 and 16. Not only the number, now it is going to produce a lot of charts and visuals, which is going into my model with each of the dimension which I use in the model is going to analyze that and going to give you those regions that where from the fall is coming. So this is picking the product, saying 25.1 million become 22 million. The major fall coming from, there is a slight increase in one of the product. There are major increase in few other product, and then others it is grouping, which you can always change, And then I scroll down, and you keep seeing, number of analysis by segment. These are the segment which grew despite of a overall decrease. These are the two segment where is the fall, and this is the biggest culprit in our segment moderation, where the fall was 3.4 million. Likewise, you have manufactured. So whatever the dimension I had in my model, all are going to pick from there and give you the analysis, which is called variance analysis. And now from here, I can pick. So here you see the Western region, which is California state. Then you have by state. So California have the biggest fall. I can pick one of these or any of a number of visuals, and I can add to my report page. And you will see that my report now taking that particular visual, and I can close this, whatever I want to highlight here. So this is the visual. I didn't create. This was the AI driven, that particular feature. And I can just highlight this. And now this is all reports are interactive. So if I say 1.9 million, I click on that, every other chart would change. So let me now jump to the next screen. So this was Insight feature I was talking about. The next part is natural language query. Now this may sound like a gimmick here, but let me show you how super cool it is. Just like when you Google something and automatically the artificial intelligence behind that create those answers for you. So let me show you that feature as well. So let me keep this aside for time being. And there is this particular feature called Q&A. Here you have the button here, but I'm just using a double click on a blank screen and preparing Q&A. By default, it creates some question, which you can just type here and you get the answer. But let me put it here. So I say, give me top 5 product name by revenue. Right, so I'm asking it to give to, I didn't ask 2015 or 16. I can even write those as well, but just keeping it simple for time being, top 5 product by revenue. And I make this as my report page. I just add it to my, and this is become part of my report. So this is our top 5 product. Now this, if I interact with other reports, so California state, which was the product, what were their contribution. So again, slice and dice, cross filtering with different dimension. So within single page, now without writing any formula, without knowing any technicality of model, I just created this visualization using the insight feature, artificial intelligence like this, and there is something called decomposition. So from here, I'll just jump because we are short of time. So I'll just jump to a ready-made model, which I created to show what other features are. Then Power BI is in the cloud. So we talking about a free tool, Power BI Desktop. Whatever I did, it is a free tool. You can download it now. You can do the same thing what I was doing. But at the end of it, you need to share these report with your other users in organization because they are the one who are going to use it, whatever story you want to tell them. So for that, you require a license. And then when it comes to the license, it goes to the cloud. As well as there is a on-premise desktop report server is available, just like SQL Server and other for larger organization on-premise also you can have. So let me jump to that report which I have done earlier and quickly show you that what are these reports. So the same data model, same everything with some of the formula I written. So there is a language called DAX language. So far in this model, we didn't write any formula. I just use the revenue number. I can use the quantity or unit number here, and I can do these basic reports. But to do more advanced report, there is a formula language within Power BI. So I was talking about the license and all other. I'll come back to that later. Visualization, we have seen few of them, and I'll show you more. Power BI has a mobile app, so the same report can be seen in mobile as well. Analyze in Excel. We all love our Excel, so I'll show you how you can connect the same Power BI report within Excel, but not the visualization. And then Power BI is getting updated every month. So when I started in 2015, what you are seeing today, many of those features were not there, but in last 3 years, 4 years, it has evolved like anything, and now it become a complete mature product. A lot of advanced feature, which I never expected 4 years back that it is possible, And then it is easy to use. As I said, what you have seen so far in last half an hour, that how easy to start with. But yes, as you grow and as your requirement become complex, you need to learn more about that. And Power BI have a massive user community. So once you start learning, you go to user group. I had, as I mentioned in the beginning, I had the Power BI user group here in Dubai. So just like in Excel, when you Google something and you always get answer immediately from somewhere that how to resolve this problem. Same now with Power BI community as well. So I will just go back to that model. So this model, which I did earlier, and few formula I wrote, and the formula language is called DAX. So I'll just show you that I wrote a formula called sales YTD and the language called DAX, data analysis expression language. So it's just simple, very simple, and similar to Excel and SQL function, but require a good amount of practice and knowledge to further grow into that. So this formula gives me the YTD number, and I use that YTD number over here in these charts rather than just picking the revenue number. Then I created another formula called sales last year. Now you see here, sales YTD, the same function which I earlier shown you. I'm using that sales YTD, and then I'm saying sales same period last year, which is going to give me the last year sale, comparative sale for that. And making use of those two, I calculated the variance, which is difference between delta between those two. And now here in this report, I'm analyzing first thing, I'm analyzing 2016 performance by category, by manufacturer, and all are interactive. So I click on this particular section of the chart, which is one of the brand, and all other visual interact with it and give me category wise, give me geography wise, or the trend month wise, whatever other visual I would have. So this is the first visual here I have. The second page I'm creating is for more of variance analysis, where I'm comparing the performance this year versus the last year. So here you have those charts, which we were trying to create earlier using those insight feature. But here I have used the formula and then created this. So what it is saying that 22.23 million is your revenue for 6 months in 2016. Compared to last year, you are down by 11.58% increase, where from the falls, the decrease is coming or increase is coming on waterfall chart, different visualization. But on top of that, you want to further analyze it, some of more features, which is like drill through. So I want to know that in California state, if I want to analyze it further, I right click on that and I go to a drill through, and there is a visualization of AI, which is called decomposition. I just click on that, which is the next page of my report, where I will have more analysis about the fall in California. There was about roughly 1.89 million variance, negative variance was there for that particular data point, which I selected on previous page. Now it is analyzing that 1.895 million, from which category it is coming most, which product is the culprit, which manufacturers, one are still because I selected there, and which segment. Again, I can interact it with it, and I can have more visual on that to further slice and dice and do the, the storytelling about my variances. So now think of this in last half an hour. What I have shown you is, quite simple, but then there are a lot of advanced demo, which normally I do. So I'll just jump to a couple of demos just to create more curiosity amongst yourself that what can be Power BI, you can make use of that. So this is a sales report demo. Normally every organization would do that revenue dashboard. So again, the similar kind of report, what I have shown you, but having a little more advanced feature into it. So what you're seeing, the sales dashboard, the lot of formula being used, YTD sales versus last 1 year versus last 2 years, comparing with your budgets or goals, or then these kind of formula, rolling averages, rolling 12 months. Your customer are sitting here, sales representative or making the sales are there, which category of the customer, which geography, and completely interactive. So I want to see my, biggest revenue earner customer. Now I click on that, and all my dashboard, now all the KPIs what I have on this dashboard is now belonging to this particular customer. I can analyze in a single meeting where I'm presenting this report. I can, look at different customer or different sales rep within the same screen, same dashboard. So you need not to have 25 pager or 50 pager your PowerPoint presentation to do that. And all this is connected to the live databases in live environment of those organizations which is using these reports. And then you go to the analysis. So here, gross margin analysis. Now, this particular company have 1,380 product, 390 customer they deal with. Overall gross margin is this, but within that, they have different categories of product. So if I select a particular category, the whole thing will change to that category. Within that category, I can go to individual level of product, where I can now see that what that individual product would have done in terms of the margin, how the margin is standing. So everything, whatever you require in terms of your analysis, you can put these kind of dashboard using Power BI. Then few others, KPI, scorecard. I mean, there are many more demos, but for the sake of time, I'm just limiting those. But keeping means, just showing you the person like me who come from a normal Excel background, but a lot of, we all from finance, we know our data well, and we are the data owner rather than the IT. So a lot of talk about empowerment of data empowerment and, Cell BI. These kind of tool help you in making these report and keeping, the more analysis in your hand rather than depending on IT or other domain for that matter. Now, if you look at this KPI scorecard, many of the organization does that. 8 different KPIs they monitor to rank the performance of a particular organization, financial KPIs, operational KPI, and then a lot of visualization feature like bookmark and tooltip being used in this. So here it is showing you the comparison YTD, but I want to go in detail page. I simply click on that and it will show me the trend rather than the YTD number, that on month, quarter on quarter, how did I do? And then the rating coming here versus budget, it is comparing and all that. And from here, I can jump to another page, operational KPI, in similar fashion, the similar page on that. So, in terms of the visualization is quite powerful. It make your storytelling, the skills much more vibrant than what you would have on your Excel or PowerPoint. And in fact, the even a novice who doesn't understand the financial or doesn't understand everything what you want to tell, but these kind of visualization like we use on our mobile app, we download, and within 3 seconds we will be able to understand what this app is all about. So this gives you that kind of experience on these reports. And a lot of financial report I do for organizations. So I'll just end with one of the financial report. It's a tabular report, which is like more of traditional reporting what we do. It is a little difficult to do in Power BI, but then again, see the power of this, that within the same report you can go to your different level of your hierarchies within your chart of account. So here you have sales coming from, if I expand this selection, it will go to the second level of my general chart of account hierarchy. I can further go to third level, fourth level, whatever segment you would have, and completely interactive report. When I click on that, I can see the trend on this side, and you can make good use of overall visualization technique what you have. And what, as I said, all these are connected to live databases in your environment. So you are not doing these repetitive report every month and every weekend or whatever your frequency is. These are ready-made report through licenses being shared with the users. So before you go to the meeting, everyone is aware about what data you're talking about, and you go with more of insight within your number of the result what you are presenting, and give a complete perspective of the data. And then it is more of decision making and giving the right kind of insight from these kind of dashboard. So I think this is what I had all to show in terms of my overall presentation. Let me jump if I have any other screen. Oops. Yeah, so I'll take any question as far as this particular presentation is concerned. Any question relating to the Power BI. So
Yes, thanks, Naveen. It was really very useful demonstration. And there was one repetitive question we have, that is in terms of the format of the data. So do we need to make any change in the format before we import? So is there any specific format which is readable by Power BI?
not really. It are, the similar Excel table, what we do, CSV, or all the databases is a tabular models there. So simple table model or table, like I use the Excel data, what I have shown you in this demo. So no specific format, but the data type is very important in any kind of reporting tool, even in Excel, which is, that if the date is coming as number or text, number is coming as text. So that's where the Power Query, the first tool which I introduced, is all about the data transformation and data cleaning. So the answer is any sort of data which is in tabular format.
Thanks. Next question is about the training session. So, how long it takes to actually to get used to Power BI and to be an expert in that. So, are there any specific courses available for the people to learn this?
Yeah, so a lot of learning material online available, but the feedback which I normally get from online session is you start with something not knowing where you are landing. And some of the best practices in these kind of tool which you need to follow is sometimes not available on those online courses, but still someone who wants to start, I'll share some of the links, which is Microsoft document and good amount of learning material Microsoft produce. That is one way to start with. And then, different stages of learning here. The Power Query, as I mentioned, is relatively simple tool. But again, that is the base of your creating data model. So if you are not doing that right, then you might land up in a problem when you go to the advanced level of learning. So in terms of learning, it requires a lot of time and patience. I spent almost 3 years where I reached or where what I do today. I'm not saying 3 years as of now, because 2010 when I started, very few material online available, very few resources were available. But in today's world, we are having a lot of material for learning. So two kind of learning here. The first one is Power Query, which is relatively easy and that can be learned quite quickly. And the second, which is DAX and data modeling, the language, formula language, as I mentioned, which goes to a very advanced level. But even learning the basic of that will give you much more power in terms of what you make use of your data. Yeah, so if someone is willing to invest time, maybe 3 months, 3 to 6 months, a regular kind of 2 3 hours investment in that. And rather than, I would say, time investment, you in any case using your Excel in everyday's life, right? So rather than having that 5 6 hours spending on Excel, if you start learning these tools, automatically you will save a lot of time automating your data, the transformation task, and then you'll have enough time to learn advanced tricks and technique about Power BI. But somewhere one need to start, and I always relate it with the fitness. Someone who is into fitness knows that initially when he starts, he might find it difficult, but once he realizes the benefit of that, he keep continuing with that, and then there is no limit to that fitness regime. So similar goes with Power BI as well.
Okay, thanks a lot. And again, on behalf of ICAP members and our committee, I'm really thankful. This was a really useful session. And you have your we have your email, and in case if there are any queries from our members, we'll share it with you, or we'll share your email address so they can reach out to you in case they need any help. With this, I would like to hand over to Asif Zaman, his secretary for our committee, to give some closing remarks about the event today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thanks everyone for attending this webinar on behalf of ICAP, UAE chapter of ICAP members. And I thanks to this to our speakers, Mr. Yusuf and Mr. Naveen, for giving insight about the analytic and cognitive offering and the practical working applications of BI in business intelligence and analytics space. And I thanks to the sponsors also, which are AGMC, Mystic, and SHMA Consulting. And hopefully that the participants have enjoyed and learned a lot from this webinar today. And if further that inshallah we'll be holding more such kind of webinars in which our members can get inside informations and professional practical applications of such things. Thanks again, and if there is any questions left over, they can write us and we'll forward to this to the speakers, and hopefully and we'll get in touch with each other. Thank you, Mr. Naveen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.